Good afternoon. I am the Reverend Joan Javier Duval, and I welcome you to the Unitarian Church of Montpelier as we gather to remember and to celebrate the life of Arthur H. Stukey, affectionately known to us all as Art. Art was a loving husband, father and grandfather, brother and uncle, an engaged church member, a passionate lover of rocks, and a friend to many. You come together in this sacred space as family, friends, neighbors, fellow church members, former colleagues. Together for this time, we create a community that includes those present in this sanctuary and church building, those joining through our live stream, and also family and friends who could not be here today. We especially recognize Art's family that is present in the sanctuary this morning. There are many: wife Sue, daughters Elizabeth and Meredith, and their husbands Tom and James, brother-in-law Ted and his wife Stephanie, sisters-in-law Dottie and Bev, and many nieces and nephews. And watching on the live stream are Art's sister, Betty, and husband, DeForest, and grandchildren, Bobby, Gracie, and Nora, tuning in from Ireland, Texas, and Morrisville, Vermont. To all of you, our hearts are with you in this time of loss. In this time that we share today, we come together to remember Art and to celebrate his long and well-lived life. We also come together to mourn his death and to say goodbye. We come first to remember who Art was over the span of his 81 years of life, as he was many years ago and also just a few weeks ago. We remember him in his times of strength and in his times of need. We remember him in his times of joy and his times of sadness. We remember the fullness of who he was at the many stages and in the many dimensions of his life. We have come together also to mourn the space that was once filled with his kind and gentle spirit, to mourn the loss of a conversation partner and friend, and to mourn the lost possibility of deeper connection, of intimacy and love. We know that Art's spirit lives on in the stories and the memories that we share. So most of all, we come here this afternoon to invite Art's presence with us and to celebrate his life. Each of you comes with your own memories of Art, for he was not the same person to any two people in this room, and nor was he the same throughout his years with you. He grew and he changed, as we all do. We bring into our time together memories, both spoken and unspoken, of a man who touched our lives in unique and varied ways. Memories of him pointing out wondrous geological features in a city parking lot. Memories of him eye to eye smiling with a young person in his life. Memories of him greeting you good morning on a Sunday before worship. Memories of him sharing stories and laughing at the kitchen table. We bring these memories into our common gathering that we may share in love and celebration of Art's sacred life. And we light our chalice this morning, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, with these words from Albert Schweitzer. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, For the Beauty of the Earth. The words will be projected and can also be found in the great hymnal. This reading is an excerpt from my first summer in the Sierra, the published journal of John Muir from the summer days in 1869, when he first visited the land that would become Yosemite National Park. We are now in the mountains, and they are in us, kindling enthusiasm, making every nerve quiver, filling every pore and cell of us. Our flesh and bone tabernacle seems transparent as glass to the beauty about us, as if truly an inseparable part of it, thrilling with the air and trees, streams and rocks, in the waves of the sun, a part of all nature, neither old nor young, sick nor well, but immortal. Just now I can hardly conceive of any bodily condition dependent on food or breath any more than the ground or the sky. How glorious a conversion, so complete and wholesome it is.
There is a sunrise like
We move now into a time of remembering Art, bringing him to life among us in spirit through our stories and memories. On the geological timescale, the existence of human life is but a slight sliver of time. However, when we bring our full presence and mindfulness to as many moments as possible of the time we do have, we can experience a fullness of life that enriches us and those around us. Art Stukey was a lover of rocks, a geologist by training and by profession. He discovered mindfulness meditation later in life, which greatly informed his everyday living. Art lived a life filled with innumerable moments upon the geological and human timescale of curiosity, wonder, and love. Art's expansive sense of curiosity led him down a path of serious study of geology and a long professional career in geological engineering. On this path, he met the love of his life, Sue, when they were both students at Tufts University in Medford, Massachusetts, and together they raised two daughters, Lizzie and Meredith. As a professional geologist, Art ventured forth out in the field for over 30 years, sometimes for weeks at a time. Engineering projects brought him to remote areas of Nepal, Iceland, China, Laos, Iran, Peru, Zambia, and beyond. Art saw parts of the earth most of us will never witness as he surveyed, excavated, and interacted with rock layers millions and billions of years old. He would return to the home base of his family from these expeditions, where he would offer and receive support and love. Together, Art, Sue, Lizzie, and Meredith ventured forth to explore natural wonders closer to home, sharing in awe at the world around them, growing in appreciation for the beauty of this world. While the family lived in Chicago, Art, along with Sue, became involved with Second Unitarian Church on the city's near north side. Art joined the membership committee and was delighted that he could love people as much as he loved rocks. Art had a quality of presence in interacting with others that communicated that he was truly interested and listening. This quality of presence was a gift he shared here at the Unitarian Church of Montpelier on our congregation's membership committee, serving as a regular usher and greeter and supporting people in becoming members of the congregation. Art connected with people of all ages, especially our young people. As UCM member Peter Toms put it, he was a friend across generations. Art served as a religious education and spiritual exploration teacher over the course of many years, sharing his love of the natural world, as well as his delightful sense of humor with our children. Art genuinely wanted all people of all ages and backgrounds to feel welcome. And with the number of people who have said that it was Art who was the first person in this church to speak any words to them, I think he did this well. In fact, on our first Sunday that we fully reopened this church year back in September, we experimented with printing fewer orders of service to save paper, and Art was an usher, and let me know in no uncertain terms that that was unacceptable and that we must print enough copies for each and every person to receive one. Art's commitment to Unitarian Universalism extended to his involvement with the summer-only Washington, Vermont UU congregation, which he and Sue commuted to regularly almost every Sunday in the summer over the last several years. Art truly valued community, and this community of the Unitarian Church of Montpelier meant a lot to him. He understood how important this church is to so many people. When we finally reopened the sanctuary on March 6th of last year, it was Art who stood next to me at the open door, greeting people as they returned to this beloved place. In his final years, Art faced a number of serious medical conditions, including a rare brain cancer. And in his final months, he struggled with never fully recovering from COVID and the pneumonia that settled into his lungs. These were difficult days for sure. Sue and his family supported him every step of the way, as did many of you in this church community and those present here. I know that Art was incredibly grateful for the support that he received and the love and the care. Today, we honor the enduring legacy of Art's caring, his heartfelt presence, his curiosity, his commitment to community, to family, to children, and to a life lived to its fullest. In a moment, we will hear remembrances from 7 of Art's family members and friends. Their remembrances paint a picture of who Art was in many different facets of his life. As we listen to these memories, I invite you to allow these stories to make present for you the Art Stukey who you knew, and to also deepen your knowledge and appreciation of the person whose life we celebrate today.
Hi, I'm Meredith. I'm Art's daughter. Trying to figure out how to tell you about my father has been a real challenge. I've been thinking about all the different ways he influenced me and talking with my family about the stories we remember about his life. Pop was one of my favorite people in the world. Every time I called or visited, he made me feel like I was the very person he was most hoping to hear from, and I suspect a lot of you know what I'm talking about. He was so interested and curious about the world and the people in it. On my phone, the image that pops up when he calls was one I took on a trip to Scotland. Mom, Pop, my husband James, and our kids Bobby and Gracie, who were 14 and 12 at the time. We were taking a tour of a castle. It wasn't a ruin, which we all agreed were our favorite, but one that was heavily decorated and very ornate. We explored the formal gardens until we got to a playground at the way back. We spent as much time goofing around there as we had in the castle. And the photo was taken just after Pop and Bobby had finished an elaborate sword fight with branches they'd found, a la Errol Flynn. He was striking a pose with a big grin on his face, and it always makes me smile when I see it and think of his joy and his playfulness. Pop was good at listening and seeing people and letting them know they were seen, which is a pretty rare quality. I vividly remember a couple of occasions when I was a teenager, when life just felt like a total mess, and I would rant and cry about what was going on. He would listen quietly, and when it passed, he didn't generally offer advice or try to solve the problem. He told me what he saw. When you were so upset, I didn't know how you were going to handle the problem, but once you got through that, you wiped your eyes, made a plan, and you dealt with it. That was amazing. That insight helped me see that the meltdown was only part of the story and has stuck with me through many other crises. He helped me see the forest when all I could see was the trees, or given his love of geology, he helped me see the mountains when all I could see was the outcrop. Pop was adventurous, and he was out in the world, and he traveled a lot for work. For a middle school project, my daughter Gracie interviewed Pop. She found the recordings last week, and it was really nice to hear his voice. They counted it up, and he'd been to 51 countries. And when he came home from his travels, he developed a taste for kimchi or sushi or bulgogi or sticky rice, things most of us didn't know much about at the time. Pop and I loved sushi, but Mom and Lizzie weren't as wild about it, so the two of us would go to Cooney's and sit at the sushi bar and eat to our heart's content. That love of travel and foods from around the world has stuck with me, as my friends and family know well. His travels didn't always go smoothly, but he never stopped enjoying the good parts. Probably because he loved trying new things, he frequently got sick when he was away. A common refrain when he got back was, "Beautiful place, gorgeous country. I was sick as a dog." When he was working in Nepal several years ago, he had 4 days off and decided to go do some exploring on his own. He chose the Bedrock Hotel, yes, because of the name, in Pokhara, Nepal. And shortly after he arrived, he came down with a really bad case of food poisoning. He was quick to point out that he hadn't gotten it from a street vendor, but at a 4-star restaurant. For the next couple of days, he could barely get out of bed. A young man who worked at the hotel kept him going by bringing him rice and broth in his room. Finally, he started feeling better and was talking with the man, telling him he was interested in going somewhere to see the sunrise. And the next day, still a little wobbly on his feet, he found himself following this man up a steep mountain path in the dark. About halfway up, he realized that nobody knew where he was. He began to wonder if he was going to be robbed or worse, but oh well, not much I can do about it now. He kept climbing. They got to the top, and Pop described seeing the most beautiful sunrise he had ever seen, spreading out across the Himalayan mountains. His sense of adventure and trust in people was justified once again. There are so many other stories I could tell. Medical stories about the time he ruptured his quadricep tendon on a mountain in Peru and had to be brought down by burro. Being airlifted from Laos to Bangkok with dengue fever. Surviving a rare brain cancer. Stories about when I taught him how to ride a motorcycle and he ended up driving over the curb and into a bush. His obsession with his red Saab convertible, playing with his beloved grandkids, or dancing up a storm with Mom. Pop loved being alive, and he was curious and amazed and often delighted at what he saw. He loved us and was proud of us, and he told us every chance he got. He'll always be one of my very favorite people, and I treasure the lessons I learned from him. Pop, I love you so much, and I will always carry your spirit with me. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lizzie. I go by many names. I'm the Chicago daughter. I'm Little Lizlet. I'm the little one. One of the consequences of Pop being such a traveling man when we were kids is that he was away a lot of the time. So much so, in fact, that one of my very best friends, Malik, was convinced that he wasn't real. And that I was hiding some sort of dark secret behind elaborate stories like, Dad's away in Argentina, or maybe when he gets back from Zambia. But when he came home, it was always fun to see what he'd brought for us from faraway lands. We were kids after all. An Olympic keychain from Korea that flipped in a circle, decorative fans or satin jackets from China. But my favorite, even better, were the dopp kit items from those long flights. So cool sleep masks, sewing kits, little fuzzy slippers, nail files, tiny lotions. Good stuff. Every now and then, often when Mom was at choir rehearsals on Thursday nights, Pop would be parent on the scene for 2 vaguely anxious little girls. So we developed a bedtime routine. Pop would sit in the middle of the bedroom Meredith and I shared and tell us stories. And sometimes they'd be long, intricate, shaggy dog stories he'd heard on the radio that morning. Or he'd ask us what we want a story about and make one up on the fly. One of my favorites was a tale he told about a grape who had rolled off a table into an inhospitable desert. But rather than give up and turn into a raisin on the spot, that grape improved his lot in life through intense and effortful evolution of things like legs and a sombrero to keep cool. Very important. A little bit like that industrious grape, Pop was often in a state of intentional evolution. Some things he was born with, curiosity and warmth came naturally, but his peaceful presence, ability to listen deeply, and acceptance of his own imperfections were things he sought out and learned. Other things too, like reading novels. A longtime fan of technical manuals and instructional texts, Pop didn't really understand the point of fiction until he was probably in his 70s, when he fell in love with reading stories and got right to work catching up on the classics he'd missed along the way, Moby-Dick being one of them. Pop's well-known love of rocks and geology started early. He once told us a story about a contraption that his father had made for him when he was a kid, maybe 10 years old, and I don't really have the mechanics of it sorted, but somehow the machine would fling or drop or crush rocks so he could see what was inside. And when Mara and I were kids, his geologistness translated to road trip narratives with words like schist and sediment and glacial morass. I remember once I showed a moment of interest in different types of dams, and before long the dining room table was covered with napkin sketches of earth dams and arch dams with pressure diagrams and cross-sections of bedrock. Anyone who's had the pleasure of a geology walk with Pop would agree that his love of the subject was infectious. Pop enjoyed music, too. As Mary said, he was a great dancer, whether he was goofing around in the living room or out on the dance floor with Mum. Little Feat, Jerry Lee Lewis, Boogie Woogie Piano and Blues. If you ever had the pleasure of singing next to him in church, you know he enjoyed playing around in that deep, rumbly lower register when he had the chance. And Justin and he would sing down there together and have a good old time. He took piano lessons as a kid. As far as I know, the only song he knew on the piano was the introduction to the St. Louis Blues in G minor. It was only the introduction, but he really leaned into it. He just went to town and we asked for it over and over again. He once told a story at Second Unitarian Church in Chicago that stayed with me and I wanted to share it with you. He had talked about a childhood friend of his named Jimmy Sharkey, and how Jimmy Sharkey was so good at everything. He got good grades, he always looked sharp and knew the right things to say. So, Pop explained, he concluded that Jimmy Sharkey's mom must have loved Jimmy more than Pop's mom loved him. He then talked about what a revelation it was to him as an adult, that his mother loved him just as much as Jimmy's mom, and it had nothing to do with what he did or didn't do, but simply who he was. It seems to me that Pop learned to love himself, and that's what allowed him to bloom into the person who showed so much love for all of us. Enthusiastic, silly, warm, caring, curious, celebratory, and present. There's so much to miss. One of the things I keep going back to is just the way he would greet me on the front porch of the house on College Street. Big bear hugs and whoops, laughs and happy noises and heys, and a kiss on the cheek. I love you all the way, Pop. Mwah.
Hello, friends and family. Lots of family. I'm Ted Allen, Art's brother-in-law. Thank you all for being here today with us. My sister Sue began dating this guy, Arthur, whom she met in the Tufts University Mountain Club, while I was off playing sailor with Uncle Sam in 1959 or so. It turned out pretty quickly that their common interests included more than just mountains. And by the time I got off of active duty in 1961, they were pretty much a solid item. Sue was at Bouvet School at Tufts University, learning physical therapy, and Art was in the geology program, learning about the rocks he had begun to collect as a young boy, long before he ever got to Tufts. When they did a winter mountaineering expedition together with the Tufts Mountain Club to the summit of Mount Washington over Christmas break, I knew they were serious about each other. Although Sue claims that she waited at the bottom of the mountain for the climbing team to get to the top and come back. Happily, their relationship then survived a separation while Sue moved to Thermopolis, Wyoming, in pursuit of the horse that she learned about when she read My Friend Flicka and Thunderhead. And Art finished his Tufts degree fieldwork in geology. A year later, in 1965, they were married in the Second Universalist Church in our hometown of Weymouth, Massachusetts. She got a great husband, and I got a younger brother whose career in engineering geology I watched with interest and admiration. Over the next 40 years, Art's career covered the globe, as you've heard. And between enduring his trips, he and Sue managed to raise a wonderful pair of daughters, whom you've also just heard from, and to take turns leading the congregation of the Second Unitarian Church of Chicago. Then, when their older daughter found the man that she wanted to marry in Morrisville, Vermont. Well, she actually found him at the kitchen door to the Mount Mansfield Resort in Stowe. Sue and Art then bought a house in Montpelier in 1991. Thereafter, they visited Vermont every summer until Art began the process of gradually retiring from his life's work among the rocks. They moved here full-time in 2007. This Unitarian Church of Montpelier has received the benefit of their joint extensive participation, as has the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Washington, Vermont. I, our mother, my daughters, and my granddaughter have had the opportunity to know them on a daily basis. When our mother could no longer function independently enough to remain at the Gary home, Sue brought her into their home, and she and Art cared for her at a level the Gary home couldn't match at the time, or perhaps ever. I came in most days during the last several years of Mom's life to visit and to read to her. As a result, my relationship with Art grew apace as I saw the commitment he and Sue made to her care. Since Mom passed away in 2011, I have continued to visit Art and Sue on a more or less weekly basis, and for the first time have really had the opportunity to get to know my brother-in-law on a deeper level. It has been rewarding. He has patiently and cheerfully supported my newfound interest in geology. And we have shared our interest in life in Montpelier and in our families. He lived this past 5 years on borrowed time and continued to be the same man everyone here knew and loved. My daughter Sharon put it well. When I was little, what I liked best about my Uncle Art was that he would always get down on his knee and talk to me on my level. So he did with everyone. I'm grateful for having had the opportunity to get to know him and to be in his company. I love him and I miss him greatly.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Noah, and I'm just honored that Sue asked me if I could share some memories of Art and our group. We had a very small group of some men that had met Art here or at the gym, you see, and we were the Romeos. We were tired old men eating out. And the group first started before me, of course, and we'd come and go. But they would, every couple of weeks, go out and eat. And each person would have a turn of saying where they wanted to eat. And it doesn't matter whether you liked it or not. That was where you're going to do. And, of course, then along came COVID. And we decided we can't stop this because there were 5 of us that stayed the whole time. Myself and Phil, who's in the choir, and Paul Hill, and Guy Tapper. And so we would eat out, and then when COVID hit, we said we couldn't. So we would do Zoom. Thank goodness for Zoom. You know, we'd spend time just chatting and, you know. And then when the weather was nice, even in COVID, we would meet on the patio, my deck or Phil's deck. And we would sit distance apart and just talk to each other. And God, what a joy and a privilege to know him. He was the most fascinating, intelligent, smart, funniest guy I'd ever met. I mean, he would just crack us up. And I always got a kick out of our Cairn Terrier, Angus. Absolutely adored Art. We would all come, and Guy and Phil and everybody was sitting there, and Art would come in, and Angus would come tearing out and just run, jump on Art's lap and sit there. And it was just, no, that's my guy. That's who I want, you know. But it was just a lot of fun. It was just some guys. I've never really been a group. I was a workaholic, and I never really had a lot of groups until I moved to Montpelier, and then my whole world opened up. But one of the greatest things in my life, honestly, is getting to know Art. He was the kindest, most gentle, caring person I've ever met or ever dreamed existed. You know, and all I can say is I'd like to be sure the family knows that I can't quote exactly who said it, but that a person should be known if they left the world a better place. And I can assure you and say without a doubt that Art left this world and all of us a much better place. And it's just a joy to know him. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael. Uncle Art sounds like it's obvious, he touched everyone in this room. He was very influential to me as well. Like Meredith, he opened up my world on foods to eat, sushi, oyster on the half shell, Persian food, things I would never dream of eating until he enthusiastically dragged me and goes, "Yeah, Mike, you gotta try this." So when I was 12 years old, I remember touring his office and just seeing maps on the wall that I didn't know existed. I just thought it was, there's roads, there's state capitals, there's state borders. But then I saw, rock formations, geothermal formations, topography maps, just everything that actually I feel have influenced me to this day as a practicing landscape architect. I thank Art for that. And I brought a letter that my mother prepared for her brother. To my dear brother, hello there, Arthur. It was a dark and stormy winter night in late December 1941. Mommy and Daddy rushed from our small double-decker apartment. They drove up the steep, icy hill to Malden Hospital to get a new baby. I didn't quite know what to expect. I was only 4.5 years old. How would a baby fit into our little family? All my life, it had just been Mommy, Daddy, Grandma Stukey, and me. It might be a girl I could play with. What could I do with a boy? But when Mommy and Daddy brought you home, you fit in quite nicely. It was fascinating to watch and help Mommy bathe you, weigh you, dress you, and feed you. And to see you grow so quickly, we soon learned about your curiosity, energy, and ability to win the hearts of others. Later, when roundup time came on the radio, you would ride your little trike around and round about the dining room like the little best cowboy of all. Later, you rode that tricycle out on the sidewalk, visiting neighbors who called out to greet you. One day, you decided to be the neighborhood mailman. When I came home from school that day, I was surprised and quite embarrassed when the neighbors started teasing me about children in my classroom. I later learned that you had discovered the box where I stored Valentines from my first grade classmates. That was the mail that you had been so industriously delivering to all the neighbors. When you were 3.5 and I was 8, World War II had ended and Daddy had earned enough to buy a house. We left our small double-decker apartment and moved to a home in Medford. Well, Medford, I'm trying to keep this accurate. Wow, my mother would pronounce things. You and I lived there for over a decade before spreading our wings after college. We walked to school, to church, to the grocery market, the fish market, and the meat market. Everything was just around the corner. Neighbors happily responded to your cheerful whistle, bright eyes, and warm smile as you went about playing with friends, exploring curiosities, and running errands for Mummy. Later, you walked to college. With each step, your curiosity, knowledge, and involvement in the world and its people grew. Throughout public school, you were more attracted to activities of an outdoor and/or social nature than with studies. But then you met and became inspired by Professor Nichols of nearby Tufts College, who spoke at our church one evening. Nichols' enthusiasm for geology was contagious, and the adventures he described while out in the field captured you. It was no surprise to us when you enrolled at Tufts, majored in geology, and went on to pursue your impressive career. It was also while at Tufts that you met your dear Sue, who was to become your wife and life partner, setting the stage for so much more to come. I will end my letter here, dear brother, but not without thanking you for the kindness, love, and joy you brought your family, and which was to later extend far beyond Bedford. Breathe easy now, dear one. We love you. Betty.
Good afternoon. You're a beautiful group of people to see, and I thank you, Art, for bringing us together for such a wonderful celebration, but of course I wish you were here. My name is Mary Jane Olson. I'm a member of the church. My husband Paul and I sit in the third row, and Sue and Art would sit in the second row. So for many years, we were always there together, which was really sweet. I'm here representing one of the groups that Art participated in called Seasoned Souls. So this is a program that started, 4 or 5 years ago here at church, and people signed up who were at least 70 or over who wanted to get together and talk to others in their age group, talk about aging, which didn't last very long because then you talk about dying, then you talk about death, and then you talk about life, because that's just the sequence. So it was just a treasure to have him in the group. We met Friday mornings, first and third Fridays of the month from like 10 to 11:30. So I have in front of me some of the words that people in the group wanted me to share with you about their feelings and thoughts about Art. When we think of Art, we think of a very warm heart, his wonderful, positive spirit, despite all his health challenges. And I want to say that the word wonderful, everyone used that word to describe Art, and I said, well, I can't just say wonderful, I have to find some other adjectives and adverbs, but wonderful was what people felt in their hearts about him. His kind, quiet manner of responding to all of us in Seasoned Souls endeared him to us. Whether he was responding to one of us or telling his own stories, his caring feelings were felt by all. Art's ability to get along, as you know, so well with children was evidenced by the UCM children who would run to hug him before service. And although a consummate professional, it's clear that the child within was very alive and well, as you know from the twinkle in his eye and the little grin that he would get sometimes when he would talk. Art's life experience, his warm personality, and his sense of being will be remembered as a model for living. We especially admired also that he grew into his ability to meditate, something he often shared with us at our Seasoned Souls. He is dearly missed. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I was always taught to go first. And now I know why. I can't talk about, well, I could, but I'm Dave Peters, by the way. I can't talk about seasoned souls, that's been taken away. Sue is in a group that my wife Ellie and I are in. I'm a Romeo with a different bunch. I've got stories about rocks. It's tough being last. But that doesn't discourage me. I'm going to go ahead anyway. Prepared words. As I look out at your entirely friendly faces, I'm impressed that knowing Art has been able to bring us all together. He was a unique and wonderful guy. And I wonder what it is about him that we all love so very, very much. Was it his infectious laugh? Yeah. His warmth and wonderful personality? Yeah. Was it that he loved us as much as we loved him? Yeah, I think that's true. Or in all honesty, I think it's a combination of all of these things and many, many, many more. He was just a beautiful guy. I had the privilege of working with Art at another thing that was stolen from me, membership committee. Jeez. I don't know. Was it Rodney Dangerfield? I don't get no respect. Anyway, Art and I were members of the UCM membership committee for many, many years. And we worked very hard, along with many others, to make people feel welcomed when they walked in the door of this wonderful church. Well, I hid frequently with my friend Judith Hines, who's out there someplace. Judith and I would hide behind a table and help people fill out forms. Art would be out just moseying all over the vestry, meeting people. He was in perpetual motion, getting to know and greet new people to our church. I honestly and sincerely believe he helped us all live the vision of welcoming all into our loving community. But you know, we also had a lot of fun together too. As members of the membership committee, once a year, for many years, we had what we laughingly called a retreat. Now, I don't know who came up with that name, but anyway, it was a chance for a bunch of good friends to meet together out at our home in Lake Elmore. We'd have lunch, occasionally have a boat ride, and just enjoy each other's company. Art was Mr. Corn. Every time we would meet, he would bring a couple dozen ears of corn as part of our lunch. And I vividly remember the number of, there's Judith. Judith and I would get the pot going, the water would be hot, and Art would be sitting outside looking at the lake. He'd already grabbed somebody to help him shuck corn. And they were taking he was taking his own sweet time. You just could not rush Art in the corn department. So the boiling water was there, Art and the corn was not. Anyway, the corny guy always ultimately came through for us, and we always enjoyed our time together. I also remember a time, several times actually, but I'm only going to talk about one, where Art and Sue met us, Ellie, my wife, and I out in Tucson, Arizona. By the way, I've learned over the years that drinking on the job is okay. One time when we were in Tucson, the four of us went to the Tucson Botanical Gardens. If you're ever out there, it's a lovely place, in the middle of the city. And while Ellie and I and Sue looked up, admiring the artwork, admiring the exhibits, admiring the cactus, so forth, Art was, you may have heard by now, he was a geologist. Anyway, he was looking down. And what he was wondering, and what he expressed, is he wondered how somebody or some group of people managed to come up with all these lovely rocks and get them transported from wherever they began to downtown Tucson. We always had a nice time at the Tucson Botanical Gardens. 3 of us spelled it N-I-C-E. One of us spelled it G-N-E-I-S-S. If you don't know what that means and you're not a rock expert, feel free to look it up. And who could possibly forget the day that Evel Knievel arrived at our home in Lake Elmore, riding his motorcycle. I had no idea initially who it was. He took off his helmet, he took off his leather, and underneath it all was the smiling face of our dear friend Art. He'd been to Morrisville to see Meredith, who's by the way, parenthetically, my favorite nurse. I volunteer at Copley, and she is top drawer. As I mentioned to Meredith earlier, I would like really to get to know Lizzie better, because I think she'd be just as top drawer, but I digress. Anyway, he'd been to Morrisville to see Meredith, and just really, I think he stopped by to see how much he could impress us with his set of wheels. I don't think any of us knew that he was the Evel Knievel of the senior set. And for those of you who are young, you could look up Evel Knievel as well. But usually, and again, I'm going to comment on another theme that was stolen. Usually when I think of Art, I think how much he loved and was loved by the people that he touched. And literally, he touched a lot of people. He was the king of hugs. Art loved to give hugs. He loved, he loved to take hugs, give and take. He loved the kids of this church. Oh, did he love being a religious educator. He certainly made a significant development in the lives of many, many young people in this congregation. Art lived a good, productive, and caring life. And what more could anyone wish for than to be remembered as a beautiful person who was loved by all who had the privilege of knowing him. Well, Art will be greatly missed. I thank Sue, his family, and UCM for the opportunity to say a few words about him today and help us all celebrate his life. He was a beautiful, beautiful guy and a very dear friend. Rest in peace, Art. You have earned it. Thank you.
Farewell, you northern hills, you mountains, all goodbye. Moorlands and stony ridges, crags and peaks, goodbye. Clear fog, farewell, cold air, stuff well, cloudberry sylvan. Sun-warmed rocks and the cold oblique glows, frozen sea. The snow and the wind and the rain of hills and mountains. Days in the sun and the tempered wind and the air like wine. And you drink till you're drunk on the joy of living. Farewell to you, my love, my time is almost done. Lie in my arms once more until You filled all my days, held the night at bay, dearest companion. Years pass by and they're gone with the speed of birds in flight. Our lives like the verse of a song heard in the mountains. Give me your hand and love and join your voice with mine. And we'll sing of the hurt and the pain and the joy of living. Farewell to you, my chicks. Soon you must fly alone. Flesh of my flesh, my future life, bone of my bone. May your wings be strong, may your days be long. Safe be your journey. Each of you's inside of you the gift of love. May it bring you light and warmth and the pleasure of giving. Eagerly savor each new day and the taste of its mouth. Never lose sight of the thrill and the joy of living. Take me to some high place of heather, rock, and limb. Scatter my dust and ashes, feed me to the wind, so that I may be part of all you see. The air you are breathing. I'll be part of the curlew's cry and the soaring hawk, the blue milkwort and the sundew hung with diamonds. I'll be riding the gentle breeze as it blows through your hair, reminding you how we shared in the joy of living.
I invite you to join me in a time of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, who is our companion also in times of death, be with all who gather here in this hour of sadness and celebration. Help us to recall that we come into the world in mystery and we go away the same. Give us strength to feel the blessing of connection, which goes deeper than human knowing, and hope enough to honor the gifts of life, even in these somber days. Be with all those gathered here and all of Art's family and friends near and far. Keep them open to feeling the love that remains for them, ever renewing in the world. In their grief, help them to honor the truth of Art's influence on their lives and to remember and cherish always the gifts that came from knowing him. May all present here carry forward Art's kindness, playfulness, curiosity, and spirit of adventure. May Art know peace, and may those who love him find comfort in their memories and peace in the days to come. Blessed be, and amen. Let us share in a few moments of silence together. I will ring the bell to begin and to end our time of meditation. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, Blue Boat Home. Again, the words will be projected. You can also find it in the teal hymnal in the pews.
I just wanted to thank you all for coming, for being his people, his community. He loves you all, and I know he'd want us to continue to love and care for each other and to lead our lives as fully as we can. For the kids out there, I think first you'd say, behave yourselves, but also dream of what you want to be, find something you love, and pour yourself into it. You never know where it will lead you. I will miss him dreadfully. We will all miss him dreadfully. But his warmth and the memory of his smile his joy in living will be with us always. Thank you.
And so may we honor Art's living spirit and his legacy in the days to come through our appreciation for the beauty and wonder of the natural world, our dedication to community and family, our curiosity about people and the world around us, and our loving care and nurture of our children. May Art know peace out in the field again. We extinguish the flame of our chalice, carrying with us its warmth as we carry with us the spirit and memory of this one who has been so dear to us. We conclude our service with the postlude, after which all are invited downstairs for a reception to greet Art's family and to continue sharing stories and memories. Art wasn't particularly musical, however, as was shared earlier, St. Louis Blues by W.C. Handy was the one piece he could play on the piano, which pleased him very much.